Hi, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show. You want to stop shop for all things Commanders? Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube, hit the notification button so you'll never miss an episode like today's episode with Donna Hopkins. Donna, how are you?
Great. Good to be with you guys, George and Big Doug.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. Co-host of the Tony McGee Show. How long have you been doing with that now with Tony, and how did you kind of get hooked up with him?
Yeah, it's been about probably 30 some years. I connected with Tony, I think right after he was playing. And he may have been still playing. I connected with him, Gary Clark, Brian Mitchell, the whole shebang used to come on the show, but the full stays is Tony and Gary. So it's been fun with those guys, whipping them into shape. I want you all to know.
I'm sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
How first time on the show, how did you get started in the business? Like what got you into this whole wacky thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an athlete. First of all, at 10 years old, I tell people that I knew what I wanted to do. I either was going to be a sports broadcaster or a professional women's basketball player. One kind of worked out more so than the other. Basketball, I ended up playing college basketball on a scholarship in basketball and track, and it just trickled into this. I knew I was going to be doing this, but like I said, the basketball end didn't work out for the professional level, but it paid my way through college. And then I came to I'm originally from West Virginia, came to the Washington, D.C. area after college and ended up, working at a radio station, gospel station, spinning records on the weekend, doing a sports show during the week, and then wrote some human interest sports stories. And, here I am years later, still with Tony. 41 years that show has been running on, it started off on HTS, Home Team Sports, and then it trickled over. Yeah, that's a long time ago. So we did it there for some years. And then, we've been with Mid-Atlantic Sports Net ever since. People can catch it on Wednesdays and Fridays, at 10:30 p.m. and then Saturday morning at 9. And we're doing some special shows right now, but they can also connect to our podcast in the minute, which will give them all updates pertaining to training camp and all of that stuff during the course of the off season and so forth. So they can connect with us two ways.
Go ahead, George.
Miss Donna's going to give you a little shout out. I don't know if it's a friend of the show or a fan. George A says, "I see Miss Donna, I click. I'm a simple man." Is what he said there. And he said, "I grew up on that show on Channel 8 in PG County." So shout out to that.
Hey, George, appreciate your following us for all these years. I tell people they can always find us because, with social media and everything now, people can find people that they normally don't. Because people said, "Did y'all go away?" I was like, no, Home Team Sports. I said Home Team Sports years ago, but Mid-Atlantic Sports Net is still going on strong and everything. And the key thing is I tell people that if you can't get Mid-Atlantic Sports Net, we also post the show on our YouTube channel after it runs the first day, that Wednesday. So people can catch us no matter what. And, everybody with TV now, they don't watch TV like they did in the old days where you had to be there when it was happening. But now you can catch it all different ways that you don't have to be at home.
You mentioned 41 years, and that has a lot of change over the years. What is the biggest thing you've noticed change-wise to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, with TV and everything, social media has changed everything. I mean, just the way people broadcast, the different means that they can broadcast. In the old days, it was like you watch TV and that's how you ended up watching shows. But now you can watch it in so many platforms that you did not have it before. With social media, they, like I said, you can catch it on YouTube channel if you can't get the regular channels, and people can watch it from all over the world. Before you had to live in the area to pick up local programs, but now people can click on a link and on social media, and they can watch you no matter where they are. So I think that's the thing that has brought it really home even more is that the various ways that you can broadcast from podcasts. It seems like everybody got a podcast going on. But that's a way for people to connect, fans and media and everything. And let me just say this, social media is a part of any job now, that whether it's in sports, out of sports, or anything. So I think the forms of the way you can connect with people across the world is so much better. But in the same breath, it can also be hurtful because people don't care what they say now. They're after you and they're more vocal because, and even though the pressure sometimes is on the players a little bit more, because before they didn't have the pressure or cared what people said because they did not see it. And now with them having a social media channel and connected to social media, whether it's X, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, or whatever it may be, players are more engaged also. So before it was the old days, nobody heard about saying nothing. You had to say it to their face. But now, you can say it, on social media, and you can fight that. And sometimes that's hurtful. And I know a lot of players tell me, although it helps their brand and everything to promote themselves, some players during the course of whether it's the NFL, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey, and all that, they don't connect to social media until after they're finished playing for that season, just to stay focused. Because sometimes people, even players, are a little sensitive when people are saying things, and sometimes they go after it, and so it's not even worth it sometimes.
Well, we're going to get to the rookie show this week. We're obviously going to talk about it. Before we do that, though, I'm curious. I assume that with the winning and a certain Jaden Daniels, that the media scrums have been a little bit bigger than maybe they were in the past. You've asked some great questions this year. How do you prepare yourself for a room full of people when you don't know who's going to ask what you might have asked beforehand?
Well, it's funny that you say that, even though it's a Jaden Daniels there now, and with the Commanders winning last year, we did not have a full room, even for the draft, even last year. I think the draft last year when Jaden was being drafted was the largest to me that it had been, with a lot of national media and all of that. But outside of that, it's not what people think. I mean, when I was covering it during the Super Bowl years for the Commanders, it was like packed in there. Sure. And so now it's your regular local media that's there each week. And so it's not a problem with you getting your questions in and any of those things, because it's just the regular local media. And you may have the national media come out there during the course of the season here and there on one day, but it does not take away from, what we have to do being local media. So that, to me, has not changed at all. And not only that, the thing about the questions is that I normally don't have to worry about anybody asking my questions for the most part, because I got in my mind of what I would want to know as an athlete myself, covering the team and watching the team. I think that you'll probably never really ask the same questions, because if you really dig in deep as far as really analyzing this team and wanting to know more from the coaches and so forth, and the players, getting to know, them a little bit better, then your questions probably would be totally different than somebody else. And I think that being a former athlete and everything, that I look at it through different lenses than people who may have not played sports in general. So that's probably the little difference in my style of how I approach, covering this team and covering sports in general.
Real quick, George, do you think at some point they will allow for press credentials for full-time podcasters?
I'm not thinking that that's going to happen, because the thing about it is that they look at broadcasts like FCC, more or less like that, as far as, going through that channel. Like you think about the local channels, TV channels, even Mid-Atlantic Sportsnet and all those go through the FCC and all of that. So if you were going to allow probably podcasters in there, what you asked me before about the room being huge and everything, that would be out of control. So I think that they really monitor that as far as the NFL. It doesn't come from just local people, but I think mandated as far as what does broadcast TV looks like. And that goes, when you think about that, that's FCC regulated and everything. So I'm not for sure if that would probably ever happen unless you're connected to some broadcast outlet.
Gotcha.
All right, makes sense. Miss Donna, it's funny. We have you on the show. There's so many fans for you here on the show today. It was actually really great to see. So the infamous, keep up the good work, fellas, and salute to Miss Donna.
I appreciate you all.
All right, so Miss Donna, just talking about that, it seems like obviously the local media seem to have a good connection with each other, good respect while you're out at training camp. Over the past weekend, we had a rookie mini camp, which is our first exposure to our rookies and undrafted free agents. I'm curious because you had the chance to get out there. What was the tone and atmosphere when you were out there on the field over the weekend?
Yeah, anytime you come into mini camp, you're going to be looking at the draft picks, the top draft picks, and, the invitees too, because I always tell people that there is always a diamond in the rough, the players that did not get drafted. Look how many of those have made the NFL team versus some of the guys that got drafted. So I think it's a lot of excitement when looking at the players. You could even tell that when they got drafted and we had a chance to talk to them, after they got drafted, they were really poised. I thought that they had a great energy, and you could just tell that these were good character guys that had came from solid backgrounds, and even in the college ranks of them playing, that they were, as I say, commanders type of players for the brotherhood. So the energy was there as far as everybody wants to absorb quickly what they have to do in learning the playbook, getting familiar with the coaches, because Merritt, looking at him during this past week's mini camp, and Coach Anthony Lynn was working with him, a former head coach, running back coach. And let me tell you, it was energy there. He was my kind of coach, because it was just like, it doesn't matter if you are coming in as a rookie. He was on him as far as, if you've ever played any sports, your coach be on you like, let's get it right. And, when you're going through the various drills, because I can recall coming into college and they were taking us through various drills, and some of the drills I had not done. And you got to learn how to do it, with your current coach. And it was a struggling time. So you could tell that players were somewhat struggling to get familiar with some of the drills that they probably did not do in college. And so Coach Lynn was explaining, bringing it down to them. And that's what I like about Coach Lynn and the teaching across the board with the coaches, with the commanders, is their ability to really teach skill sets, making you better as far as even when it comes down to drills, because to me, drills simulate your game time plan and everything. So I watched him and I was like, ooh, Coach Lynn is on him heavy. And, as he learned it and did it a couple of times, then he started to getting there. But I like how Coach Lynn kind of like stopped him at different points, pointed out things, showing them, as far as if you're running, this is the way you kind of like, as far as cutting back, putting your body in position. And the same thing with some of the other players, because I paid attention a lot to the 5 draftees, but then I was looking at other players also. So I'm a person that kind of like really pays attention to the offensive line, because the key is that offensive line, and John Connolly, he was really, you could tell that his skill sets is there already.
I love that.
As far as how he just, when they were doing the drills and they had the pads up, the other guys had their pads up, and it was like the driving motion. You could just tell his feet works was good. He was, as they say, the leverage and everything just his movement and everything. And when they were doing the ball drills, I tell people about the social media thing where he was hopping off the ground. Well, you could just tell that, his skill sets is there, but his knowledge about the game. And I was talking to him, after practice and asking him, did he learn anything? What was practice like? And he said the thing that he learned is you have to grab a hold of this quickly, because you don't have time to kind of like stumble over the learning part. Because you think about right now, the veterans are not there with the rookies. I mean, they're there in the building, but when they come later on in the first part of June, when everybody is there, those veterans are already hitting the ground and already gone. And then the second year players. So as a rookie coming in, you could tell that they was trying to absorb everything possible. The energy was there. Like I said, Josh Connolly to me was just solid. You could just tell. Plus some of the other guys that 79, I'm trying to think about who that was. 79 Phillips. I'm looking down here from Mississippi State. That for him to be 240 pounds. And so, well, let me just make sure as far as he is 330 pounds.
Okay.
That's the guy the Ravens drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah, but watching him also, he was pretty nice as far as you could tell to be a big guy and everything. He had some flexibility and his good feet work and just hitting the pads and everything with the blocking, driving. So that's another guy that while I was watching Josh over there, that was another guy that caught my attention a little bit. So, but the running back position, like I said, that was interesting just to watch Coach Lynn. That's the kind of coach that you want to be able, because you think about it when you got Brian Robinson and you got Eckler and Rodriguez and McNichols, and you're talking about a guy that comes in here with, and he's got great speed as far as that goes, Merritt. But again, the learning is not where those other guys that have played in the league a lot. Absolutely. So you want to actually even watching Chris Rodriguez that had been in the system for his 2nd year last year to go through drills and everything with Coach Lynn. There were some adjustments there too, because, you're learning a new style. You're learning from a running back coach that's done it before. And so, like I said, with Merritt and this time that he had, it was important for him to go through these drills and get it in. So I like that. And then Jalen Lane, this is a speeds guy. I mean, he all the way around, but good hands too. So I look at him being more of the returner guy, but he may get a taste also of wide receiving and everything. And I love everything about what he said afterwards, that I was asking him, how did he measure up with the receivers already on the roster with the Deebo Samuels and Terry McLaurin, Terry McLaurin and some of the other guys that's on the roster. And he said that all he's trying to be is a sponge. That's what they're all trying to be, is a sponge to absorb as much. But his skill sets is there, and it's the speed that's going to help them as far as the slot. You look at him playing more of the slot, but I think that he has all the tools and everything. And one of my colleagues had pointed out Anderson, a big guy. I think he's, everybody thought that he possibly could be a tight end. So Lake Lewis, one of my colleagues, I asked Lake, I said, hey, who is another guy that really stood out for you that was not the top 5 draftees? And he said that Anderson, wide receiver, but he was out there with the receivers versus with the tight ends, but you never know how they may use him. So he said that was a guy that stood out. And then, the other draft picks that they picked, the linebacker, he's going to be nice. The thing that makes him nice, Kane, is that he's already had a relationship with the coach, Coach Norton. And so therefore he's already ahead of the game because he knows Coach Norton's styles. Coach Norton knows about him. He knows his skill sets. And this is a big guy. So I think he's going to be able to help the Commanders right away also. So I really like the energy from the draftees. To me, I can see all of those guys probably making this team. Now, some may be starters. I look for Josh Connolly to be a starter because I think he has all the skill sets to be right there. And I think the other guys will be in there. One guy I didn't mention that was not drafted was Gabe Taylor. Now, and that's the great storyline. But look, he's not looking for a great storyline. He's looking to make this roster.
Exactly.
And Coach Quinn said that, you're not even looking about what the roster is going to look like. You're just trying to do everything you possibly can to be on that roster later on down the line, because we know that the Commanders are not finished even getting more players when that free agency last piece happens, because I believe that they're still looking at an edge rusher that may be available where another team let that person go, or else they haven't signed them yet. But Gabe Taylor is interesting because I watched him out there with Trey Amos, and I didn't mention Trey Amos until right now because I wanted to put those guys together. But Gabe Taylor, in watching him and Trey Amos go through the drills and everything, the coach, when Gabe Taylor came through one of the drills and everything, he said, man, he fast. He was looking at him like, whoa, he came around that corner really fast, And so you could just hear him. He said, every time, coach was saying, every time that we went through the drills, you just got better and better. And you could just tell Gabe has great speed and everything. And you can tell he's got a little chip to say, hey, you know what? I love the fact that the Commanders just did not just, have him on the roster, invite him to minicamp, but they like what they saw as a player. It just happened to be that he was Sean Taylor's younger brother, but him making this team has nothing to do with Sean, because we know the great Sean Taylor was fantastic. If we could have a lot more of those kind of players, we'd be ahead of the ball game with the Sean Taylors. But Gabe gives you another piece of the pie as far as his quickness that you can't teach. You either fast or you're not. And so when I watched him and Trey Amos, and another one, Trey Amos, coming off the edge, going through the drills, the coaches were saying the same thing about him. He was like, yeah, that's the way to hit it. I mean, the coach was turning his head like this, like, whoa, what just happened there? Because they were picking it up fast. And that's something that does not happen, because they normally have to stop you and say, no, you got to do this. But when they were, they were putting their body low, coming around the edge as a cornerback, their feet work, and both Trey Amos and Gabe Taylor are pretty fast, and that's going to help them.
Trey's big too. He's a 6'1" or something. Was it noticeable to you?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay.
And that's the thing that I asked Coach Quinn about Trey Amos, that when you look at the cornerback room, how do you see his skill sets blending in with the other guys that's here? Mikey Sanders still that can play both inside and outside. And that Mikey was a true inside player, but the Commanders decided last year that, hey, you know what? Let's try him on the outside. And guess what? He blossomed even more so on the outside. He did not, his learning curve did not stop playing on the outside. And then you got Jonathan Jones that they signed in free agency this year. That's going to be able to help them also. And then Marshawn Lattimore, to me, this should be a solid big year for him, because when they picked him up, he was nicked and he was never, 100% through that whole rest of the season. So you're looking for him to have that big type year. And then now you got a Trey Amos. So I asked Coach Quinn, I said, how does he blend in with that class of the cornerbacks right now because of his length? You just said that, George, his length helps him out. He's a true outside. So Mikey may be
sure.
moving back in the inside, or else it's multiple, because Mikey, I think, is going to play a little bit of outside and inside, and you have that flexibility because he can play inside and outside.
He's just good. He's just a good football player. Yeah, he can do anything.
Right. And then to get a Jonathan Jones that helps that room also, this is the first time in a long time that you can say, wow, that cornerback room is really solid. And so Trey Amos provides you with a little bit more that because of his length, and as Coach Quinn, because of his stretch, his quickness, and then playing up on the ball. Some players cannot play up on the ball, and you've got to be able to do all that. So I really like that cornerback room that they have right now. And Gabe, even if he doesn't, he may be on the practice squad because the Commanders like him that much. But if he's got anything to say about it, he's going to make sure that in practices and out of practice, that his name is going to be heard, because he said all he's hearing is that he's too small. And we know that how many cornerbacks that have been small that made this team. You can talk about a Darrell Green, and I mentioned him only because everybody, Darrell Green had the great speed too. Gabe Teller has the great speed. I'm not comparing them to each other, but I'm just saying that Darrell Green was small coming into the NFL at 5'8". I think that's about round where he was. And so they were looking at, oh man, he's a small cornerback. We got these big receivers, but what he lacked in as far as the height, he made up because of his jumping abilities, his vertical, and also hands down his great speed. We all can remember him chasing down people.
Tony Dorsett.
Real quick, you mentioned the Josh Connerly challenge. Shout out to our friend Deuce that started that. It was great, and it went and took off viral. George, I'm on record that Bill, the last player that they drafted, will be starting by week 5. I think that's a more than reasonable. People don't realize how good that kid is because he sat out last year. But he may end up being one of the better that they had. Sometimes less is more. They only got 5 draft picks this year, but it feels like all 5 of them have a real shot, not just making the roster, but being productive year one. If you can get Majano on special teams, then it feels like every one of these guys are going to get game action this year. Not something you can always say from, say, last year's draft where they had 10 picks, and we'll see how many of them make it. So I personally like what they've done here. Donna, where there's some things that you were surprised, 2 things, where there's some things that you thought you'd see at camp that you didn't. And I'm curious the pace that they use. I know the pace that they use when the vets get back. Do they temper that some for the rookies, or no? Coaches are out there busting homes.
Hey, let me tell you, it's no tempering it for anybody. You better catch up with the speed of it. So it's not like you giving people a pacifier. You better be able to drink solid milk. It's no playing around. I wasn't surprised at anything, and I want to go back, Big Doug, to what you said about the Commanders just with 5 picks. I think that they really, with those 5 picks, was really strategic with hitting a lot of different needs, because you're talking about, you got your offensive lineman, you got a running back to add to that running back house, because when you think about the injuries that they had last year with Brian Robinson with that hamstring, Eckler with the concussion, and we know that every time if you had a concussion problem, every time you get hit, you're more likely to have a concussion again, even if it's just blowing on you a little bit, because of the fact that you've had multiple concussions. So for them to get an offensive lineman that can play both guard and tackle, and you want people to be versatile, that's the reason why I said Connerly is so key to that offensive line with the depth also, because they can move him around and he doesn't miss the beat. And you think about last year, they drafted offensive linemen also. So they've got 2 guys that they, have drafted offensive line to be able to help them a lot. So Like I said, they got a running back, they got a linebacker, they got a wide receiver. So I think that they helped themselves with the draft by getting key pieces of players that could really step up and really play for this team right off. The running back room is going to be tough because if you look at, Rodriguez, Nichols that they signed back, Brian Robinson and Eckler, Merritt could end up on the practice squad. The key thing for all these players is special teams. They're going to have to make this team special teams. So nothing really surprised me about mini camp because mini camp is just mini camp. Those 2 days, 3 days, because all they're doing is really learning playbook and then going through drills, getting familiar with their coaches. And so you're not going to see a whole bunch. We didn't see much of anything, but kind of like watching them through the drills, which the drills are important. If people don't realize that drills are important. They're the things that set you up for game situations, like I mentioned before. So they didn't have any pads on, so you weren't able to no hitting. What's going to be the telltale is when the veterans get in here, and then they go up against the veterans. When you have Jalen Lanes going up against the cornerbacks, and you can see, hey, can he get away? Can he get free? Merritt, as far as the blocking back there, can he read the holes? What is his cutbacks like, and all of that? What is his vision in the backfield? And then you got, Trey Amos again going up against the wide. They got to go up a little bit against the guys, but when you're going with the pads and everything, where you're hitting and all those things, that's when you can tell. Because even last year during this time and even in some of the OTAs, I wasn't able to really tell a lot, even about Jayden, until they got into training camp in late July and August, where you really got to have them with the pads on. The defense was going against the offense, the offensive line, defensive line. I'm curious to see the defensive line a little bit more. But this was just learning. This was all about, mini camp is all about learning and starting to put the pieces together. And I think that you could tell in training in the mini camp last week is that you got football players. Like solid football players. They were picking up stuff, and that's what you want to see in mini camp. Are they grasping the system? Are they able to go from the classroom to the football field? And can you see a little bit of that classroom work materializing on the field? And I think that's what it's all about as far as this mini camp. August, the end of August, I think the veterans will be back. First part of June, the veterans be back with them. That's when you'll be able to tell a little bit more of these guys, grasp them a little bit. But the great thing about these guys, they have connected with some of the veterans, and some of the veterans have eased their minds because you're kind of like nervous. You're on the NFL field. You're working with coaches, NFL coaches for the first time. And so it's the pressure that you put on yourself, and you want to be able to do everything right. But this is the time that you may not do everything right. This is kind of like the learning part. Yeah. But I do like the energy that each player had, and you could just tell that they were just absorbing, taking in everything, and they hit the ground running. Doug, it was like I said, it was solid milk that they were on, not a pacifier.
There you go. Miss Donna, what are the next steps? I know they had the rookie minicamp over the past weekend. When do they finalize the roster? I think all of us are kind of waiting for who's going to make the team and who's going to kind of fill out that roster of 90. Do you know when that date's going to happen? And do you think Gabe Taylor is going to potentially make the team, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a long ways off because as Coach Quinn told us, and people were talking about the roster and, with the schedule coming out this week also, that's going to be key. But this roster is not going to be finalized for a minute because, again, they still have players that they are possibly going to sign. Okay. So I think that you won't see this roster come to full play until training camp. When you get into the training camp, it's not going to happen probably in OTAs or anything like that. Some of the guys that were invited for a mini camp, It was probably, I don't know the number. All of those guys may not be there, but quite a few of them will, because you still want to see these guys up against some of the other players.
Okay.
And they're going to be constantly signing other players that teams are letting go, that they may be able to snag a need still on their roster. So that roster is going to take some time to even come to play with those 90 players. Talking about the schedule, let's hop on that for a minute, because
Absolutely.
everybody is talking about
Got
the
your passport
Commanders.
ready?
You know what? I tell people that my passport is never not ready.
There you go. I love that. I love
am
that.
an international traveler. I told someone that if I wasn't doing sports or anything like that, I would be on some TV show around the world telling you where you should go to travel at. So I was laughing. They said, "You got your passport?" I said, "It never goes. I never have to worry about it expiring because it's there." But I was surprised that the Commanders, we don't know because it's out there, that the Commanders may have that game in November against the Dolphins in Spain. Would that be good for the Commanders? Sometimes it's a disruption for them to go international. And to me, in the NFL has a say in that. And now, with the commissioner coming to Washington about the new stadium and a possible Super Bowl, and now that they got the draft in 2027, then is the pressure on the Commanders to say, yes, we'll do that international game, because it comes down to the Commanders saying, yes, we'll do that. So I'm just looking at, because they had all these other great things happen, and the commissioner was involved in all of that, that Commanders may feel like, well, I guess we may do this, since we got that stadium, and starting those talks, and like I said, the draft, and possibly a Super Bowl, that they may feel that they got a little,
the commissioner's been here more. The commissioner's been here more in the last 3 weeks than he has in the last 20 years, I believe.
Hello. I mean, it's almost like, like you said, Big Doug, when is the last time you seen him this
excited
and everything? Because and Washington, D.C. is such a football place, and for them to get back up to winning, that's big for the NFL, because they're one of the elite teams that over the years and everything, they've always been in the conversation. They're one of those teams that you want. It's the nation's capital too. So everybody, being that, they're talking so much about the Spain game and all of that, you can almost probably say the Commanders probably will be playing that game. I personally, would have liked them not to play an overseas game this year, because they're still getting their feet wet. And, they had the success last year. Like I said, people who play out of the country in those games, is a lot of things that have to go into that. Will this disrupt your schedule a little bit? Would it disrupt you as a team a little bit? And that's certainly what you don't want to happen. Do I want to go to Spain? I don't have that problem. I would. I'm looking at the key thing, because when you look at the schedule of who Washington plays this year, they got to go on the road to play the Kansas City Chiefs. They got to go. They play a lot. Like last year, they play a lot of East Coast teams on the road. This year, they're playing a lot of West Coast teams on the road, because they got to go to Green Bay. They got to go to, like I said, LA. They got to go to Kansas City. I heard talk that possibly that the Kansas City game could be on Christmas Day.
We keep hearing that.
Yeah. So
Christmas or Turkey Day.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Game.
Yeah,
do you have a preference of them playing? If they had to play on Thanksgiving or Christmas, do you have a preference?
I prefer Thanksgiving, because I'm so used to covering them on Thanksgiving, playing the Cowboys.
Sure.
But yeah, I just think that when you look at their schedule and the West Coast teams and that they play and everything, playing a game out of the country just adds more pressure and everything. I mean, a lot of teams like to do that, but I just see that for me with the Commanders, with them just in their second year with their second year quarterback and all the, all the other things, the success they had. You don't want to derail that. It may not be derailed just because they're playing, if they end up playing out of the country. But to me, a lot of teams just don't like to play overseas. It's normally the same ones, if you notice, that plays overseas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they want to, but you can see a lot of the teams like, nah, you can have it. And Spain is not just around the corner.
Absolutely.
No, it's like a 9-hour flight. I mean,
Yes.
I looked at it the other day. Tickets aren't too bad. George, you going?
Yeah, I don't know if I can afford it. We'll see what happens.
That would be a lot. You have a lot of fans to go, but I told someone that it's funny about the schedule coming out, because the schedule used to come out right after the draft. I mean, after the draft, the next day it was out. Now it's a big production because it's all about money. Because you think about the drafts used to happen in a room and you didn't have this big production. But now the NFL, like everybody else, is trying to take advantage of having, events for all
everything.
I mean, really, the schedule. Well, what events do you possibly have? Just send out the schedule, please.
Last question is for me, at least. In regard to week 1, who do you think the opening matchup would be? Do you think it's going to be a Sunday night football game or Monday night football game? Do you think Washington will get one of those big time games for week 1?
Yeah, the thing about Washington this year, if you notice last year when the schedule came out, the Commanders didn't have a lot of national games, Monday night games, Thursday night games. But towards the end of the season, when they started flipping the schedule a little bit, Washington ended up getting those primetime games towards the end of the season when they were flexing the schedule. So because of Jaden Daniels and this team in general and what they did last year, and the numbers of people that was watching games and everything when they did switch over to those games from their normal time, is I can see the Commanders having a Monday night game or Sunday night game to start the season, even the Thursday night game to start the season, a prime game like that. Definitely, you're going to see the Commanders be more televised on those primetime games this year than you did last year. Those Monday nights, those Sunday nights, those Thursday nights games, the 4:00 games and everything. Although I hate the 4:00 games, I like 1:00 games.
It's in the middle of the day. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, but you're going to see that their schedules show a lot of primetime games, because you think about it, even when Dallas and some of those teams like that, they had a lot of prime games, because when you're winning, when you're a draw also, they're going to have you on prime times, because some of the Thursday night games were
snoozers.
Dreadful last year.
100%.
Yeah, so I could see Washington being in a primetime game for sure with the start of the season.
I think I like them on Sunday night against the Bears or the Lions. One last one before we get out of here, Donna. You mentioned earlier about it being a football town and it kind of getting that juice back. It is also a basketball town. The Wizards haven't given the district anything like we've seen last year with the Commanders to get that hope back up. Will they get flagged tonight?
Yeah, is this a real basketball town, really?
You don't think?
I mean, it is you think about the teams here across, whether it's college, because you think about college, they have a variety of college teams from University of Maryland, Georgetown, George Mason, George Washington, both men and women. They've got the WNBA here. But the thing is it's about winning. Because if you're not winning, people are not watching you. I mean, we're a hockey team, we're baseball, but basketball, I say that, are we really? Because the women's program for basketball has been successful. Men, Maryland, up and down. Georgetown hasn't been there in a long time. George Mason, both the men and the women back on the map. But for the NBA, I can't say that it's really an NBA town, because until you win, think about the Commanders, until they started winning again and the energy started coming back because of the new ownership, from the old ownership to the new ownership with the Commanders, that's when life started coming back for this Washington fan base for the Commanders. So with the Wizards, the same thing has to happen too. They had a dreadful season this past year. I mean, one of the worst. I mean, I hate bad basketball. I played myself, and I hate bad basketball to watch it. And what I watched was not them just losing games, but it was just the effort of the excitement about getting out on the floor, because I was like, half the time it's like, do they want to win? I mean, they were getting killed by 20, 30, 40 points at times. So I would say that it's not really yet, because look how many times the Wizards have had the top picks to make that team better. But until you get a marquee player in here, like when you look at the other teams that are in the NBA playoffs right now, they got marquee leaderships when you say this team is built around that. Golden State is built around Steph Curry and that group. When you talk about the Lakers, they're built around LeBron and then Lucas now. When you talk about the Celtics and all that, all of these teams and the other ones that I haven't missed. And look at Oklahoma that got back on the winning track. Look at Cleveland gotten back on the winning. Even Indiana. And the New York Knicks, let's talk about them.
Out of nowhere. Yeah, it's crazy.
And Denver and all of those guys, they've gotten better as far as being back in the conversation of being named good basketball teams. The Wizards haven't gotten there. They're not even in the conversation talking about being a decent team. It's like everybody's just looking at, they're just a bad team. So, until they get that marquee player, a veteran player that draws people in, then you can start talking about, this team moving forward. Now, the draft is just that. I mean, they may get draft picks and everything, but will those draft picks be able to pull this team in the right direction? Or do you trade for one of those big name players to say, this is going to be your leader? I mean, they don't have that. I mean, they got, when you look at who they've gotten over the last 3 or 4 years, it's not going to be a Magic Johnson, Larry Bird,
probably not.
Magic Johnson, or any of those
LeBron.
players, Steph Curry, LeBron. Those players, you build around that. And who do they have to build around right now?
You're right, Miss Donna.
The team, so I was just going to say this, George. The team stinks, and it's not an NBA town right now, but I guess what I was saying as far as basketball, we'll fill a high school auditorium for basketball games. Like the district does love basketball. It's just that the professional team in the district doesn't give them anything to root for. Because that's what I meant. Like, high school basketball is huge.
High school and college is huge, because they will feel, I'm not down in the high school programs because they are solid. I was more thinking of the professional level teams here. But you're right, Big Doug. It's basically, it is a team. It is an area for high school sports in general, not just basketball. Across the DMV. They are strong as far as their sports. So most definitely, I agree with you, is the high school programs and the college programs are pretty solid, because those people come out and watch and everything. I'm looking forward to, mentioning the WNBA, because I got to give them shout outs too, give them some love, because you're talking about they've been revamped all the way around. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this year, being that, some of their core players are Deladon retired and everything, but they really revamped that whole roster for the most part. New coach, new GM. So they should have a fresh breath. Now, I don't know how it's going to materialize on the basketball court, because they lost one of their top draft picks.
I was going to say Georgia Moore
already. To an ACL injury, the dreaded ACL. But again, you like where the direction they're going in, because they definitely needed a new coach, new GM, and they got both of those. So I'm looking for them to be much better. It may not materialize this year all the way, but they're going in the right direction.
And that's what I was going to say too. I think the DMV, as Doug kind of alluded to, it's a hotbed for talent. We have Gonzaga, St. John's, DeMatha. We have all these great local high school teams that definitely, they definitely breed some good talent here. In regard to the Wizards, they break my heart. I was a season ticket holder for so many years. They've been bad for so long The NBA is a
Hey, George, they don't break your heart. They crush your heart.
They crush my heart's been broken, Ms. Donna. It's been broken. It's a multiple star league. You need stars on your team, and Washington hasn't had stars on the team since John Wall left. Once John Wall left, the heart of our team walked away. So I think we need a little revamp there, and hopefully Cooper Flagg is we get the number 1 pick. We get to get him there. And I love your shout out to the Mystics. I love watching them. I think they're gonna be a great team. My heart broke when Georgia Moore went down. I think she's a little fire starter, great point guard. She went down. We still have Citron and Kiki Elefrain. I think we're going to be okay. So they're definitely building up there. So we'll see what happens. We need some energy in the summertime for DC around here. We need something around here.
We sure do. I sure do. So go out and watch your Washington Mystics as that season start up. I think their big games used to be played down there with the Wizards.
Right?
Baltimore. They're going to be played at Baltimore this year. I was like, what?
They bounce around. They do that. They do that.
How dare you switch to Baltimore? This is the DMV down here. It's like you go downtown, build that up. But I think they're going to. I don't know if they're going to be remodeling that because the Capital One. Because of the upgrades that they're making there. So that could be the reason why they're going to be playing in Baltimore for those big games and everything. That draws, we talk about the draws a lot. They draw a lot. Last year, the ticket prices was sky high. You couldn't get in because everybody wants to see Caitlin Clark, Reese,
and Dallas, and the Chicago, all the big games. Exactly right. It'll be fun.
Yeah, but it's fun. I think that when you look at the WNBA and what they're trying to do with revamping that a little bit too, is that with the Mystics, it's going to be excited to see what they put on the floor and how well they do this year. And like I said, I think they're going in the right directions. And shout out, like I said, to all the high school sports. Even track and field is big in the area too. So the DMV is like hot for all sports. And let me just say this: my college back in West Virginia recruit heavily at DeMatha and some of those other schools. A lot of the great players get away from the DMV.
That's the hard part.
That's sad. Because I tell people, I said, how in the world did you get away from the University of Maryland, for football, even the Virginia area, because West Virginia University gets a lot of the DMV players. And I know even at Fairmont State University, where I went, we got a lot of the players from up this way. So it's sad that you lose that kind of talent. Sometimes it's just about people wanting to go away, to get away from home. But other times it's just the recruiting was better.
I agree.
Merlin losing, their coach.
Let them go.
Started on that one, but
I know, let them go. Let them go. It's all good.
Yeah.
Come for Commanders talk, stay for the WNBA talk. Donna, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I don't know why it took so long, but let's do this again once they got the pads on.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to coming back and talking about when it gets real.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Donna.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you all.
See you.